Good evening. A quorum being present, this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission for Annapolis for 24 June 2021 shall come to order. The commission operates pursuant to the land use article of the annotated code of the state of Maryland. Local authority for the commission is derived from Municipal Code of the City of Annapolis, Chapter 21, Section 56. The purpose of the HPC is to preserve sites, structures, and districts of historical, cultural, archaeological, and architectural significance. Requirements for serving on the commission are detailed in Chapter 21, Section 8.06. The HPC operates pursuant to the State of Maryland Open Meetings Act, and therefore no pending application shall be discussed among commissioners outside the public hearing to determine the disposition of the application. Okay, next item on the agenda is roll call. Bill Williams.
Here.
Kim Finch.
You might need to unmute.
Hello, Kim.
He's not muted.
Oh.
Okay. I can see her. Okay. Bobby Collins.
Here.
Will Scott.
Present.
And Tim Leahy. I serve as chair. Bobby Scott is our vice chair. Bobby Collins. Okay. Also, we have with us our newly appointed, I think we can say, Chief of Historic Preservation, John Tower. Roberta is not with us this evening. She is actually moving tonight, all this week. Representatives from the Office of Law are here, Joel Braithwaite and Ms. Cheryl Wood. Okay. And our recorder is Ms. Tammy Hook. Okay. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have two on the agenda for tonight. April 22nd. I had one real small comment on the last page under the announcements section, Tammy. You wish we wished Roberta a good further life here to her. It says here rather than her. If you can see that.
Is it on the April 22nd minutes?
Yes, it's under announcements. You'll just see. I think it's the very last sentence.
You sure? I'm not seeing. I mean, unless I'm mixed up.
I'll send it over to you.
It just doesn't look like there's an announcement on the April 22nd minutes. Was it the April 13th minutes?
May 11th.
May 11th.
I'm sorry, did I mix it? It's on May 11th. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mixed them up.
Thank you.
My
And
fault.
so it says here instead of her.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you. I think I
Okay.
caught it. Yep. Thank you.
All right. And then I may have them backwards, so let me go back. Then just our proposed commissioner's name is Leslie Xavier. And let's see, that is also, I guess, must be under the same one. Yes.
Yep. And how do you spell her name?
Xiev
You said it's
Xavier.
Oh, Xavier, not Xavier. Okay.
Xavier, yeah.
Thank you.
So that's on page 4.
Okay.
All right. So that was the minutes from 5/11. Do I have any other comments on minutes from 5/11? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for May 11th?
I'd move. So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Okay. Minutes for May 11th are approved. Okay. We also have April 22nd on the agenda for approval. Any comments on those minutes? Okay, hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move we approve the minutes from April 22nd, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay, so they're all good. All right, next item on the agenda is other business. We have a team from St. John's College to make a presentation for pre-application number 3. So is everyone promoted to presenter at this point?
They are, yes.
Okay, great. So just let us know who's leading this. Dean, are you leading the presentation?
Yes, good evening.
Okay, thanks. Welcome.
Thank you everyone for your time again this evening. Gregory could not join us tonight. He had a family emergency, so I'll be speaking in his stead and introducing our new landscape architect, Michael Ferguson and Associates. They're joining us tonight to discuss a little bit of the terrace area. So, and then we have a few minor updates on the exterior glazing questions that we've been discussing in the past meetings that we'll wrap up with. But we wanted to give Michael a chance to present what our current thinking is and to get some feedback from you guys. And then we can move into some of those more micro items on the facade.
Dean, I have to ask one, I have to have you acknowledge the fact that this is a pre-application and it's a courtesy extended to the applicant for design review and in no way reflects approval or denial of any particular aspect of the proposal. Do you understand?
Yep. Yes, we and the team understand that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Michael Ferguson and his team.
Okay, thank you, Dean, and good evening, commissioners. Now, I may need to start a little bit with instructions on how I can share my screen. Can I do that?
Sure. There should be a
Okay,
green
I
button
think-
at the bottom, and then
Yep.
it should let you select a window.
Okay. So are you seeing a plan of the
Yep.
area in question at St. John's?
Sure. Thank you.
Great, okay. So, I am Michael Ferguson, delighted to be here, working with Annette Griffin on this project. I am going to go through this proposal quite quickly, succinctly as I can. Don't hesitate to stop me with questions or concerns at any moment, but I'll try to move through it fairly quickly. And then certainly we can go back and discuss it at your pleasure and at your length. The focus of this presentation is in the orange box, and that's, and that is this Francis Scott Key Terrace. I'm going to share with you some drawings that you are familiar with already through Dean's office and presentations that have preceded ours, but I think they're awfully good in terms of the description of a fairly complex accretion of buildings over a long period of time, but quite an extraordinary collection, I think. And as you, I know, remember, that includes the 1956 original building, as well as the 88 edition of the gallery and the 2001 cafe and conference pieces that fit in together to quite a complex puzzle with, I think, quite an extraordinary beginning. And you remember probably these drawings as well, elevation and plan from Neutra's original drawings from 1956. And I'd point out in this a couple of things, the stairs that never got built, as well as I think simply the beauty of the brick panel that defines that piece. And then in plan here, the stairs that you see in section right there. Below it, current conditions with the addition of the 88 gallery and the conditions again in plan, and then in elevation with the gallery outlined and delineated in green there. Some beautiful juxtapositions of plan, the original soon after construction, and with the panel that defines the window wall of the lobby from 56, 57, and then current today, as you see it, with both the alley in front of it and the 88 addition of the gallery. I think quite an extraordinarily beautiful plan in terms of architectural, quite close to what was realized in the original plan, and with some thinking about outside space as well. And I'd point out three of the pieces that fit together in this Noli plan. To the northeast of the main entry, a sizable gathering area. The outside area associated with the auditorium itself to the west of it, and then a fairly large thinking or idea about a large area of paving to the west of the observatory. Building quite well worked out and very close, as I said, to what was realized. I think it's interesting too to see, though, as opposed to the clarity and kind of precision of the plan and in some of those outside spaces, quite soft in terms of its thinking about landscape. I will point out one tree that we believe we know predates that plan, and that's one great London plane tree, a twin trunk London plane tree that is an important part of the composition and part of our concern to protect the root zone of that existing tree. And it's a beautiful one. But then also the lack of clarity and confidence in the pathway system that's illustrated there. I think all kind of important pieces of, I think, a very, very beautiful plan that represents quite an extraordinary, I think, example of mid-century architecture for its period and even more so for its context. I love the model as well, and you can see some of the same outdoor spaces I just mentioned, not too well to the east of the northeast entry, but quite clearly with the cafe terrace and the terrace to the west of the planetarium. But what I think is interesting as well that didn't show up in those plans is what clearly is the expectations of some kind of paved area directly outside of the window wall of the lobby. And that's very much, of course, what we're focused on tonight. Interesting too to note.
Hear anything.
I'm sorry?
I couldn't hear anything you said for the last few minutes.
Really? Well, we can hear you and I can hear
I
him.
have no problems here.
Should I?
No,
Can you hear?
No,
Can
that's
you hear
okay.
me?
That's okay. I just wanted to bring it to Mark's attention if he can do anything about it.
Okay, I'm happy to back up. Can you hear me now? Fine.
Yes, very clearly.
Okay. Well, Mr. Lay, would you like me to back up a little bit or keep going?
Will, would you like to back up? I think Michael is laying out.
No, I
a
think I'm
historical perspective.
following what he was saying. I just didn't want it to continue.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Well, please interrupt me
Okay.
if that happens again. I was just saying, I think a little more clarity on the path. It would seem to be almost a painted path, a little straighter now across those topography lines, but I think a very beautiful model. And then as we see it today, and as I know you know it coming in from the stairs from the Hilltop campus with the original 57 Neutra building, the addition of the 1988 gallery building. And then I'm just going to quickly walk you through a kind of series of views that I know you're familiar with, but I'm going to use them to register some of the ideas that we'll look at as part of the proposal. Looking to the south, full flush view of the lobby and the window wall at its face. I will point out something that's not in your package that I've added, but the curb that defines the planting strip at the base of that wall is something that's in variable condition towards its western end, rather unceremoniously chopped off, I assume, with the addition of the 1988 gallery, but you can see its condition, serious deterioration. And I would point out that it is lower in elevation than the finished floor of the lobby or the gallery. And we will need to raise that as well as rebuild it. And I'll explain more while we're raising it as we go through the proposal, but wanted to add those details of it and call those to your attention. Then looking to the west, and you can see where that curve is in good shape. You can't see where it's disintegrated, which was those views in the past, nor can you see where it's buried in the foreground. This view out from under the canopy, now stepping back, still looking west, but under the kind of compression of the canopy. And I would point out, and we'll see it again, this condition of the column coming down on the lifted footing at that location. And then stepping back in a way and looking directly to the south under the canopy towards the entrance. I'd point out the bench composition here, which we believe was built in the 70s. It is built in a way that I would say is sympathetic to the Neuter piece, but without the kind of clarity and crispness. And our sense is best to be removed, but wanted to get your reactions and opinions and thoughts about it. For me, removing it because I don't think that it contributes well to the composition, doesn't have the same quality. And maybe equally because it creates a pinch point here. So a lot of students walk across the back of it, and it's compacting the soil of that London plane tree that I mentioned is such a treasure, which we are quite sure is a 19th century, probably late 19th century origin. And so for a couple of those reasons, we would see removing this, as I said, wanted to get your thoughts and opinions on it. I'll keep going, but I hope we'll come back to that and talk about it in the end. I want to jump in a lot closer. I think one of the more awkward, or the most awkward spot in this area is this location where we've had pavement failure, and you can see how it's tried to be shorn up, but it is dipping there and it is in trouble. I think quite awkward the way the footing for the column that supports the canopy is raised above grade. The addition of a downspout that is dropping water from the canopy into the area where we don't want it, that is against the window wall in that corner. So we want to try to address a number of those conditions in the proposal, and I'll come back to that and show you a little bit more about how we hope to do that as it relates to the proposed plan here. And the proposed plan is for a terrace that is effectively an extension of the lobby area, particularly for the ability to expand events, which are quite common in the lobby area, with the door, of course, on that eastern face of the gallery entrance right there. The terrace is 30 feet deep by about 55 feet wide. It's defined on its southern edge by the reconstructed curb that's 3 feet from the window wall of the building and defines that planted area between those two. And it allows us, and we're thinking would be awfully good, to reconstruct that set of stairs that slips between the southern column of the canopy, the northern one being the one that comes down currently on grade. I love it as an idea because it realizes a clear intention, but I also like it because I think it makes a much better terrace. That is a terrace that's accessible from the northwestern end, but also accessible and able to leave through the southeastern end. Any terrace, any occupiable terrace, I think is much better when it allows pass through and it allows a way to leave as well as to arrive. So for all of those reasons, we are enthusiastic about the construction of that set of stairs. That then defines a planted area that is at the level of the walkway there, which is nominally flat, very, very little movement. And it is then, or it creates a place that is finished in its definition by two seat walls that are leveled out, and while the pathway to the north, and that pathway is an existing path that's been moved 8 feet to the north, but it's an important part of the accessibility of the project as a whole. And those two seat walls create a kind of seating corner in this location that is a low spot in the terrace, so that all of this drains in that direction. Our hope is to, or our intention is to get the water that comes down the face of that wing wall, get it into this rain garden so that the water gets away from the wall, and we're able to drain away from all the edges into that corner. So that corner might look something like this. And what you see is that walk that's nominally level, the walk that slopes down at about 3% towards the gallery, the seating corner that's made out of a wall that provides that rain garden and a place to hold the water and move it to the north, and then two level walls that extend out in two seat wall heights, two 18, 19-inch seat walls that create that corner. That's a seating corner that's intended to provide casual seating in conjunction with movable tables and chairs that will furnish.
Hey, Michael, could I interrupt real
Yes.
quick? Can
You
you
bet.
tell us a little bit, I didn't see it elsewhere in the presentation, just a little bit about the materials you're thinking of for the seat wall here?
Yes, so imagining it's all of that material is in brick, and that's strongly my sense of the right material. I will share with you a variety of options for pavings,
Right.
but my sense is strongly that this should all be brick that, and I assume matches the building, or certainly is compatible with the building at least. So that's my sense, that the material is a simply detailed brick.
Okay.
I'll keep going. Is that? Mhm.
Yep.
So if we reverse over then to this troublesome corner, you see those conditions we just saw as they exist today, and then perhaps as we imagine them, and that is the same brick wall at the same elevation, now wrapping into that corner, a 4-foot wide slot for those set of stairs. Now the materials for those stairs I'm a little less clear on. I could see them being cast in place concrete. I could see them being stone. I do not believe they should be brick, but happy to hear your thoughts on that as well, as they're sketched here, imagining them as stone or concrete.
And
We
I'll
still-
insert too, the railing details will be important too, so.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. They will be handrails, not guardrails, as I believe it, and that does give us, I think, the kind of transparency we want out of it. We still do show that downspout coming down there. Our intention would be to carry it over and then bring it up in a pop-up emitter into this bed, which then would get that water over here indirectly. We are looking into really getting rid of that downspout, and that would be the first choice, but we really haven't worked that routing out yet. But what this does is allow us to get the steps in, maintain the 3-foot planting strip against the face of the building, provide a more, I think, logical and rational seat for the column of the canopy, and get the water out of that corner and away from the window wall. If we then go back to that photograph from under the canopy and look at how that might change, and I will go back for a second just to make it clear, that is that existing walk that I mentioned, sloping down at about 3%. It focuses on the canopied area of the entrance to the gallery. We're moving it 8 feet to the north, which is now that edge will become its northern edge, and it then is aligned with the glazed corner of the gallery, but it is moved north, and it's a little hard to see here, but what you can see certainly is the planter that's elevated up to the level of the wall, the set of stairs dropping in, the column coming down on that stair, and then the 2 seat walls that extend out and allow the sloped walk to drop down behind them. Now with the imagery of some of the movable furniture, tables and chairs, work tables, as well as the casual seating that those seat walls provide. If we swing around then To the north, looking now towards the south at that window wall, you can see the relocated sloped walk. You can see a little bit as those level seat walls on a datum, on an elevation, extend down to the west till we get to a flush point at which you can enter that area. And then, of course, you can see some occupation. You can see the planter and the columns of the canopy coming down within that area. As I said, we wanted to share with you a range of paving strategies for the terrace. This imagining cast in place concrete with saw cut joints that pick up the rhythm of the mullions of the windows 4 feet on the north wall of the lobby, and then 2 feet rhythm along the face of the gallery, and dividing into a simple rational kind of division of that cast in place. We see that as a possibility. Another would be something similar, but in precast pavers that would pick up the pattern and material color tone of the limestone panels here and here of the gallery. And we see that as a possibility. Our strong recommendation would be to do this in brick, and that is in a stretched brick or an edge brick. This brick is 3 inches wide by 9 inches long in a running bond pattern, and it is a permeable brick. My sense is that it becomes beautifully compatible with the brick walks of the campus, but also I think it is fully compatible with the original building, particularly with that stretcher course pattern of the brick that frames the window wall of the north facade. So our recommendation would be the brick, a permeable brick that both improves the drainage of this area, but also addresses issues of stormwater and Chesapeake Bay concerns. The stairs are rendered in red here. They can be brick. That is these stairs, but as I said, my sense is they ought to be a material that distinguishes it from the paving, and concrete or stone, I think, is a good possibility. Last thing I wanted to share with you, well, actually, second to the last thing, plantings in these 2 beds, and the 2 beds being the strip of planting along the face of the building, and then the rain garden. In the rain garden, rush, a fine textured, and it would be the dominant plant, evergreen, riparian plant, beautiful bright green, fine texture, evergreen, with a native bulb called Camassia that has a strong presence in late spring and is, I think, just a beautiful accent to that. And then along the curb planter, ferns that are, I think, a beautiful use on that northern shady face, with leucojum coming up in the spring. The leucojum precedes the ferns. As its foliage dies down, the fern foliage takes over. So a very simple palette, but a delicate palette, and I think a strong textural palette that I think is quite compatible with the building as a piece and its intention. Lastly, I did want to share then one other option we looked at, and that's a slightly larger terrace. The terrace you saw before was 30 feet, about to here, by 55. This is 38 by 55. That roughly mirrors the depth of the lobby. You don't quite see the full extent of the lobby here. This mirrors that lobby. It provides more paved space for larger events, and for the college that has some attraction. The scheme that you saw before is 3/4 of that size at 30 feet, but we wanted to get your reaction to the scale of these 2 terrace possibilities as well. So with that, I would say thank you, and be happy to to go back to any part of the presentation at your pleasure.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. What we usually do from a process point of view, I think we'll deal with this component first, as opposed to moving on to the other component, and we'll get some feedback if everyone is in agreement with that. I think that we might as well provide feedback right now. So does anyone have any questions, either commissioners or John, staff, regarding aspects of this, and then we can provide some feedback.
Well, I have one question. Why did concrete present itself as a desirable material?
Okay, so we'll move on to those kinds. I meant just questions about is it or is it not. So John, that's fine, but yeah,
Sorry,
that's fine.
sorry.
So is it just, you have an understanding, a good understanding of the presentation? Yeah, okay.
I have one quick question.
Yeah.
I thought the presentation was very finely done, and I'll get back to that a little later when we discuss, but you didn't make any mention of those ficus and other plantings that are on the interior.
Mhm.
Is that something that you're considering and that you would be responsible for making the treatment for them, Mr. Ferguson?
So I'm not sure I can provide the complete answer for that. I can give you my personal opinion on those.
Well, I'll narrow it down. And then maybe it'll come up again later. Are those ficus trees what was planned by Neutra?
No. And so if I have one clear reaction, the ficus don't belong there.
How did they get there? Do you know that? Can you?
I do not. All I know is they aren't original to Neutra's dealings with.
That's good. I never could get a clear idea about that. So thank you.
Yeah, I find them disruptive.
Okay. Any other questions about the details of what we've been seeing? And okay, so then, John, if you have a question now, some of the design aspects. So what we try to do, Michael, is talk about how the design is consistent or not consistent with our guidelines. Mm-hmm. And then where it's not consistent, we try to explain why it isn't or it is or isn't. So, John, you had a question about the selection of material for the paving.
Well, concrete is typically not a material that's chosen within the historic district for something that is, let's say, a primary view shed. So I was just curious about that. I mean, certainly you've offered brick on edge and given a wonderful reason to use that material. So I was just curious about that.
Actually, I appreciate the question because it's a question in my mind as well. The only reason I said concrete is a possibility is, no, I shouldn't say the only two reasons that one might consider it. The first is that Neutra clearly was comfortable with concrete flat work. The pavings, the places he envisioned were envisioned and implemented in exposed aggregate concrete. Flat work, I think, is easy, not easy, but is very doable. Not so doable well in stair work. Normally, I would avoid it anytime I could. So no, I guess really the only reason I consider it for that or for the curb would be to what I would say might be authenticity or a default to a belief that that's might have been the way it was envisioned originally. Otherwise, and my much stronger preference would be stone or precast. I think precast could be a very good treatment for those stairs and the curb. Something that is clearly concrete material I like, but clearly we have the capacity to do it extremely well. And very good cast in place concrete stairs are very, very hard to get done well.
So again, in my effort to always be providing guidelines, most of them are cited in the presentation at the end, I think in the appendix. But we're talking about guideline C1, landscape design and materials, which says they should be appropriate for the building which they directly relate. You could argue, my opinion is you could argue that brick relates to the building as well as possibly precast. So what do any other commissioners have thoughts on actually, we've jumped to a detail, materials or any other aspects?
Tim?
If I
Yeah.
may,
Sure.
Go ahead, Bill.
concrete, as unfortunately we are familiar with, is usually not a high quality concrete, is not well worked. It's just thrown down, flattened out, floated, and people walk away. Concrete that is artfully done, I feel could easily associate with the building. A very interesting example of that is the East Wing Gallery in DC, which is where all the coffers. That is concrete. But at the same time, the people who made those molds were cabinet workers. And the concrete itself was a high quality, and the aggregate in it was, I believe, I want to say a marble or a granite.
Pink, yes, it's a pink marble, Bill.
The pink
I'm
marble.
familiar.
So when we start talking concrete, it's
What are we talking about, right?
like talking wood. What type, what species?
I agree also that I'm concerned about the use of concrete for those stairs. And Tim, I'll ask you, since you're the senior member, or John as the staff person, there are stone steps that lead down from the hill where McDowell Hall and the other
Sure.
older buildings are. And that would seem to me to be an appropriate material, which I don't know Neutra's details well enough to know if he ever used it. But and I also am conscious of the idea of creating a false sense of history, but I think stone would be much preferable to me than concrete.
For the treads.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with those steps. When you say stone, what in particular do you mean?
They are stone. You
Yeah,
step down from
granite,
McDowell Hall.
They're effectively bluestone. They
Yeah.
step down from McDowell
Okay.
Hall, and
Yeah.
they're used throughout the campus.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that's what it was or not, and I didn't want to assume, so.
For me, that's a hard stone to identify. It's clearly a sedimentary stone. When I first saw it, I thought it was a dense limestone. I talked to the masons that were working on it. They didn't know what kind of stone it was, but I think it's an awfully good comment. That matching that stone or something
Yes.
compatible with it, I think is a great suggestion.
It doesn't, I'm not asking that it be the same stone, but that it have the same basic color and texture.
Yeah, no, that's a nice idea.
Well, bluestone was used on the balcony plaza of Randall when that was redone because of its match to the steps that are out there.
Yep. And everyone knows I'm intimately familiar with this, and JR can comment, but over on the Hodson House, there's a whole plaza there. So there's some references around the campus that might make your choice a little easier, I think. And I would say that about any material choices. There's not a real design standard for the campus right now. But as recently, even the little bench that's out on College Avenue we really did think about the materials chosen there. So there's a vocabulary that exists within the campus already that you might use to define the treads that we're talking. We're just talking about the treads right now. I know we have a tendency to drive right down to a detail, but that would be, I think, a good thing to look at. There's also brick stairs around too. So
I can say my strong preference would be some material that distinguishes itself. We do lots of brick stairs, but I don't think they wear as well. And I like the idea that this is visibly different, just in terms of clarity and safety. So I think the idea of stone that's compatible with other uses on the campus is a great idea.
Yeah. Okay.
And one of the things I'm trying to picture in my mind is how are all the surrounding areas that have different stones and bricks, and how is it all going to kind of play together when you're standing at various points in the campus? How are the things that relate to the older, more historic buildings going to relate to the more modern pieces that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I think that's worthwhile in your final presentation. I think it would be helpful to give some of that environment description. It's again, one of our guidelines says this is effectively I'm almost viewing this as an addition, even though it is mainly landscape. It is a prominent addition, and it should relate to the surrounding quote unquote neighborhood. And you'll find a lot of variety. There's some beautiful, there's some beautiful exposed concrete, aggregate concrete down the way. And there's a plaza with benches around it. And so I think when you make your choice, I think it would be helpful to refer to what your inspiration was in that neighborhood in terms of materials. And the building is the dominant one, in my opinion, but there are some other things that can inform it.
Good.
Okay, I had a few other.
Well, excuse me.
I had just a few other questions in your detail. By the way, it's a beautiful presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
The curb is actually a new feature that I actually didn't know much about before. Do you have a sense of whether that was original or was that added at a later point to create a planter?
No, it was part of the original plans, and Dean might be able to expand on that with more authority, but without a doubt, it was part of Neutra's, a section of it is in his package. Okay. And it is a concrete floor. It's really a trough.
Yeah.
But still, we want to get the water away from it.
Sure.
It makes no sense to, and I don't think the intention ever was to put the water in there. I think that was it was simply an oversight, I think, or somehow a shortcoming in the construction. Clearly, they didn't build the stairs, and clearly they had a grading problem right there.
So
I can speak just a little bit to that. There was a convenience stair where Michael's talking about adding a new stair back that shows in the original blueprints, and it basically came down kind of here and then across, and there was like a single set of convenience stores here, and that curb formed. There was a planter which was formed by that curb, and then the sidewalk that was maybe the width of the stair across that section.
And that you can see in the plans that we have back in the package, in the earlier part of this package.
The downspout itself, I believe, drains a portion. There's like a fin up here, and it basically has been tacked on to try to alleviate some drainage issues that are like happening in this area. Underneath one of the canopy. So it's definitely a later addition. It was not part of the original. And you can see where it was sort of cut into there's I think a little bit of an overhang here that it's cut into the bottom of. It was definitely a hack job after the fact.
Okay. So the curb again, if it is part of the original construction, are you saying it was part of the original construction? Are you removing it and replacing it or repairing it?
I think it's at the point where it's beyond just repair. Probably it's probably replacing kind.
Okay.
We're maintaining the location, as Michael mentioned with the elevation of the plaza at that point. It needs to be at the height of the plaza, which I don't think is more than maybe an inch higher than where it is, maybe inch and a half. It
might be a couple of inches, but we really have to lift it up in order to maintain accessibility out of the new doors.
Right.
Well, it'll be important. That's just a feature that is original feature, just like any other. It's funny. It's not as significant as the plate glass windows, but the same idea. You just need to tell us you're going to replace it because it's beyond repair. Okay. Anyone else have thoughts on that item?
Oh, no, not on that item.
Okay. Removing the benches. I think you're exactly right. Students tend to go right over them, but they also use it as a funny little gathering area. They are, I can validate, they look like they were built by the students in the 70s.
They also detract from the horizontality and the overall
don't fit.
composition of the main building that we're trying to protect and enhance.
Does anyone feel they have gained historic significance? It'll be interesting to see how you treat that. You're just planning on leaving that open for circulation.
Was that a question to me?
Yeah, yes.
I think it depends. I wanted to hear your reaction to it. I think if the consensus is to lose it, we would embrace that. We might also look at a way to still create a little bit of a place there, and maybe a place to sit, but one that doesn't constrict the entrance, and one that we feel is more compatible with the clean nature of the original
Right.
building.
When you say a place to sit, are you thinking of a small border wall that people could sit on? That would then
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to jump too fast, but I'm thinking it's a low seat wall that without a back, but a place that one could sit. It is, as you said, it's not a bad gathering place, and it's got a very delightful view.
Sure.
So if you're amenable to losing it, then when we come back, we'll develop some ideas for how we would treat it if that bench is gone. But I see it, if we do something, it's extremely simple. It's not a U shape. It's just a bar of material that allows you to sit and enjoy that spot.
Yeah, again, I'll go back to the reference to other benches of nature around the campus. I mean, and that kind of moves on to materials for this, your larger seat walls. I think you're going to want to just give us more. Right now, you're thinking about completely a brick seat wall for the longer feature that you're describing. And again, that's your decision. I think from the guideline point of view, anything you do should not compete or detract from that big plate glass wall, which is such a defining feature of the building.
Yeah.
And
we keep it, excuse me.
No, I was going to say, and again, that's right back to a guideline called B1, which is, in addition, you don't compete with a historic structure with a new addition or a new feature. So go ahead, Michael.
Oh, just to say, my sense is that, and I believe it fits with what you're saying, it ought to be as simple as possible, no fancy detailing. And I see as a stretcher course, face brick with a roll lock course coping. But I think brick is the quietest thing we can do.
And consistent. Will, did you have something? I don't see everyone.
I'm not sure how you want to proceed, but I think I can tick through almost all of my comments quickly, except for one, and that's the rain garden. Do you want me to try that?
Yeah, go ahead. And I have a concern too, so go ahead.
Okay. The metal column and the footing, yes, I think you need to address that, and you've proposed something that I think is very sensible and appropriate. In fact, overall, I appreciate the way that your comments used an appropriate vocabulary and seem to reflect a real appreciation and understanding of Neutra's design principles in creating the original building. So almost everything you're recommending, I support. I am bothered a little bit by the stair rail. And if that's ADA required, I understand then that we have to address it, and you've kept it very subtle, but I do think it's a distracting visual element, even though it's small. The seat walls, is it possible that you could consider I don't mean a real dark stone, but stone for them that could be a stronger horizontal element? They are seated low, but if you're inside and looking out, you will see them. And I think rather than more brick, I'd like to see or suggest that you think about a slightly different kind of material, but I don't want to dwell on that right now. I think your larger terrace seems to me to be very reasonable, and since it will help the college, and I'm connected to the college and the potential use, I think that would be valuable and not in any way be contrary to Neutra's original design concepts. So that leaves the rain garden. And you mentioned a strong palette, and even your little illustration here shows that rain garden as a noticeable new feature. And you yourself referenced the importance of the window wall. I'd like to see that rain garden be less prominent. I think it's a great idea and has a very important element to help protect the Neutra building and manage rainwater and all of that. But I think, as I'm understanding it, it's a little more prominent than I would like to see it be. So a different palette of plants might be the only thing that it would take to make me feel more comfortable. So that's just my thoughts. I'm not trying to debate the issue. I'm just suggesting that that's a concern.
No, I
That's
can
it for
echo,
me.
okay, yeah, I can echo that exact concern. If you look at this drawing we're looking at right now, it's got the thank you at the top of it, but you can see where the corner of the rain or the rain garden there, it interrupts that corner of that such prominent window wall. And is it possible to reduce the size of that even over to the rail or the frame? It just, you can see it right there, in my opinion. This is just my view. And again, our objective here from a guideline point of view is not to compete or diminish or have an adverse impact on a significant feature. So that's a bit of a concern. I don't, just by reducing it, I think you could solve it. I'm not proposing to put an angle in or anything like, I wouldn't design, so just reduce, so is it possible, feasible for you to make that change? What's driving the size? I guess what's driving the size of the rain garden is what the question is.
The size of the rain garden in the north-south direction is driven by the depth of the terrace.
Yes, yes.
But the east-west direction is driven by an 8-inch gas line. It's a major gas line. It is not a college-owned gas line. It's a municipal gas line with an easement that runs with it, and we are getting as close to it as we possibly can. Rerouting it is not possible, and so unfortunately the east-west direction is driven by that very significant 8-inch gas line.
Okay, I do have a thought here, and I hesitate to say it, but at the Gulbenkian Museum in Lisbon, they have a beautiful, they have a beautiful shallow pond that has water lilies in it. So it provides variation and visual interest when, when the lilies are blooming and thus and such. Could that be a possible proposal so that you would keep, it could be shallower, less visually intrusive, but still provide the functions of both vegetative decoration and water management?
Well, I think that's quite a beautiful idea, beautiful thought. I will say we do a lot of fountains. We do a lot of work on colleges and universities across the country. We do a lot of fountains. They come at a cost, and the cost is not.
Oh, I don't mean a fountain. I just mean a shallow reflecting pool that is planted with water lilies that will only be at the surface of the water. That's what
but in this case, it's a distinction without a difference. If we had standing water in there, we would have to recirculate it. We'd have to treat it, and it's got to have a sealed bottom. Now we've done them where they are all those things, plus they have a freeboard for rainwater. Yeah. And the rainwater moves through, and it's all a good system. And I think it's a beautiful idea. All I will say is that it's not a simple one, especially with a column coming down in the middle of it and the waterproofing associated with that. It's a costly one to implement, and it's a significant ongoing maintenance. So while I think it's quite beautiful, it's only doable if the college really embraces the idea and has the resources to maintain it.
Okay, well, I would ask that you at least discuss it with the college and consider the cost, but I definitely would emphasize, I feel like that should be a less visible element, what you
Mhm.
proposed.
Yeah, I think that's the important point is it does seem to run afoul of one of our guidelines, and how you solve that is a design issue for you.
Mhm. So,
One question about the current thing is just a bank that drifts downward. I'm not familiar with the gas line and why that makes you push it farther out than it's already just a slow grade down. So I'm just wondering, again, it's up to you, but I think reducing the prominence or even height of that feature would not interrupt this exact elevation we're looking at here.
so it is a little complicated. The gas line takes a 90-degree turn through this. So
Yeah.
while we could, not sure I can explain it well. The reason you're not seeing the gas line in that area that currently slopes down is that the gas line isn't in that area. It comes into this location a little bit to the south of that. I believe, though, that and so it runs through about half of this planter. But my sense is the planter wants to be a very simple shape, that we
Agreed.
don't want to put an angle on it. We don't want to
Agreed.
put a step on it.
Agreed.
So while it's not running through the entire thing, it does, I believe, dictate the width of it as a simple shape.
Okay. Well, you've heard.
Michael, if you just go to the next plan for a
May
second.
I ask a question, please?
Sure, Bill.
The corner that's down by the glass, and I believe you said you don't want to step. My question is, we already have the wall stepping where you have the seating parallel to that glass. Why not do a step just at that corner? You even, maintain whatever stone cap you have, so you have almost a reflection of the two, or a replay. So in the plan, it would be the lower left-hand corner there, and you drop down and come across to the stair and step back up again. So you drop that, by dropping that corner, you help relieve the blocking of the glass, add a little more interest to the planner perhaps, and replay what's already happening up parallel to the glass along the walk.
The difficulty there, I mean,
Can I just interrupt real quick?
Excuse me.
I really want to coach my my commissioners. I think we've explained the challenge. Right now, we shouldn't, and I feel strongly that it's up to the designer to solve the design issue we've presented. So I love the concept, Bill, and I know you're an architect too. But we need to remember that.
I understand.
Yeah. So, but I think we've provided the feedback that corner seems to be an issue from a guideline point of view.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question? Just so everyone, the routing, it does something like this, and I think Michael has held it as close as possible to the wall. And there's a large valve in the corner there. So is there any, this is on the original plans. I don't know if we can designate this gas line as historic. We're respecting it in its current siting. Probably not. But I didn't know if there was any, I think what we're trying to balance here is, the context of this upper piece and then the creation of this new lower piece. So I don't know if there's any other guideline feedback that we can draw on to, as we try to solve this. And I understand the issue with the glass here.
It just is, it's a feature that's not there now, and the pipeline is there now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a prominent feature that's new and with the pipeline existing. So all I think we're really trying to say is that design feature needs more work.
Okay, understood.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
And ideally to alleviate the closeness and the proximity to that issue of the glass.
Well, it's actually an elevation. You know what I mean? It's in.
Mhm.
We said the prominence of the glass plate wall we've talked about from day one, right? As such a character-defining feature of this building. And right now, without an architectural feature there, it's uninterrupted. And now there's an interruption. So,
okay,
just need to be sensitive to it, I guess.
Okay, understood.
Okay. Then also, does anyone else have any comments about the larger size of the plaza? I think that, any concerns there? Bobby? Will? I don't think that feature changes. It creates a longer wall there, but not in the problem area. Okay. Then any more comments on the brick surface that's been favored, I think, by the proposal, turning it on its side, and having it elongated is different than others in the historic district and even on campus. So I think it'll be important for you to pick up if there are elongated bricks in Mellon Hall that are, I think there are. There's a variety of brickwork in Mellon Hall. So I just think it's important that you give us your rationale for the dimension of the brick. They exist on their side elsewhere on the campus and underneath the entrances to the first floor of Mellon Hall. They're McDowell Hall. They're on their sides.
We'll look into that. I don't know and can't quote areas, but we'll look into it. All I would say is historically, it is a well used practice, particularly in areas of heavy traffic. I'd be very surprised if I didn't see it somewhere in Annapolis. It is a well-used technique of edge brick to increase its bearing strength and its durability over time.
Yeah.
But we'll look through the campus and see if we can find some examples.
Well, actually, I think you'll find it on Mellon Hall. I think you'll probably find it in the construction of even in the walls, not necessarily on paving.
Yes, I was talking about flat work specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a standard. It is the face brick dimension. The only difference is the mortar's not there.
Yeah, crazily enough, we have a guideline that defines 5 patterns.
Yes.
And that's not one of them, but
I know.
Does anyone else have any issue with the fact that it isn't one of the 5 approved standards or recommended? It's a should, not a must statement. So
If
anyone,
it's already being used on site there.
Yeah.
Then it's already a feature that's part of
exactly.
design.
Exactly. Okay. All right. I'll hold off summarizing then if no one has any other comments. I've got some notes here that when we summarize at the end, I'll summarize this aspect. But generally, I think we have given you feedback and it's mostly positive and feasible. That's where we're going to end up. John, do you have anything else to say?
I think that the terrace is sympathetic, and I think it would be an interesting addition.
Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. We can move on to the other aspect of the design.
Thank you.
Hey, Michael, if you can unshare.
Yeah, there you go.
Doors up. So we won't go through the first 30 pages of this. Nothing's changed.
Thank you.
Yes. And right off the bat, that everyone can notice that the solar panels have been deferred possibly to the future, but they're not in this application.
Correct.
Okay.
So we just had a few updates. We've had some, we did a site walk with Roberta and John shortly before her departure, and also with MHT on site. We've also had further conversation with someone who's going to help us with the actual fabrication and design of the window walls. So that's in progress. So that goes to a point that was raised last time about whether we could see some samples for this section C of what an insulated unit versus a non-insulated glass would look like there. So those samples are hopefully in production, and we'll be able to get those out on site, hopefully before a future pre-application, so that commissioners can walk out and see them on site in the comparison for a final approval or disapproval on that. So that's the only update on this main section for the moment. On the east doors, we wanted to address I think we still had the etching idea on the table. Maybe last time we spoke, I think we've taken that off of the table. I think everyone just sort of said that's kind of goofy, both the college. So I think our client as well as the commissioners sounded not in favor of that approach. So I think our preferred approach would be, and the cleanest approach would be to probably just omit the doors. And we recognize that we could still use the same bottom profiles that are there on the doors that track across this entire glazing system. So the only thing that would be going away would be the two handles and the patch hardware that's there. The alternative to that would be to replace these doors. This whole wall is being replaced as part of the safety issue. And so as we replace the doors, we're looking at solutions for maintaining the hardware as closely as possible. But again, this patch hardware is not designed to hold the size of the door that Neutra put there, which is part of the reason the doors don't work today. So that will be one adjustment. The other thing, we'll have to include egress hardware on the interior side, which in this case, unfortunately, is a glass wall. So you can see it from the exterior. And so that's one component as well that we've updated for what a full replacement would actually look like. We're trying to keep that egress hardware as discreet as possible. But this is sort of where we are on choices. And so if we could get some steerage as to if there's a general, I understand this is not I think I said at the very beginning, we understand this is not a clear direction, but if we could get a sense of what the guidelines would say on this matter, or if there's anything we can look to as we craft our final approach on this, that would be helpful.
Okay, do you want to just deal with that one?
Sure, we can just
go
take these
these
one at a time, and
I
we
think
can be
that's
done. That's probably
yeah.
easier.
Then we don't have to hold our comments. Okay, thoughts on we basically have two things on the table here. I think the etched thing. I think you drew the right conclusion. Personally, anybody else that was any other commissioners or John that were wedded to the etched glass?
Well, I think you all know how I felt about it.
You'll have to remember.
No, and I didn't think it was a good option.
Yeah, okay. No, I think we had lots of issues. It was interesting, but no. So I think we're down to two options: replace in kind, or modify to a plate glass wall, which is pretty much identical to the other side. So, who would like to start that discussion?
Tim, I think I actually was one of the proponents of the etched glass, but I see the sense of not doing that. And I've been in that space too many times and felt the drafts and all of that. So I'm fine with the proposed option.
Option two, sorry, option
one.
Yeah, right. Okay. Any what other commissioners' thoughts? I think Bill, last time you had a concern, I believe, that of changing a design that was initially created by by the architect. And
actually, my comment at the very beginning was to get rid of the doors and make it all flat. And I believe I was shot down on that.
Okay.
But I go with option one. I think it actually is more sensitive to the original design. And I still think the doors that were put in due to comments of probably the owners looking for access on that side of the building as opposed to a design decision.
So you're going inside the mind of Richard Neutra. Very good, Bill. That's really.
I tried to get my weed out and talk to him, and he didn't say I was wrong.
That's a dangerous step. Luckily, we don't have too many 20th century masters in the historic district. Bobby?
I'm not swayed one way or the other too much, but based on what I'm hearing tonight from the other commissioners, I would agree with option one for the panels.
Okay. Kim, can you hear us? Are you? Looks like you're in twice. Kim, are you continuing to have technical issues?
Tim, hi.
There we go. Hi, Kim.
Yeah, I can't, I'm in here twice tonight because I had trouble getting in. So
Okay.
one of me, I can't, I have to turn them both off or on.
Okay,
Anyway,
well, you're here now, so that's good. Do you have a strong feeling about option 1 or 2 on the?
I think option 1 is probably going to be the best solution just because of the difficulty of the weight of the glass and trying to make that work. I think the appearance is fine, though we've lost that accessibility there. I think that I don't think it, just construction-wise, I think it seems difficult.
Okay. Yeah, so we're dealing with is our luckily thank you for the applicant has put the guidelines right in there for us, D19, which has to do with windows, new windows, and they should be sympathetic and to the design. Secretary of the Interior Standard 6 is the one that we are challenging here. This historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced, and anything new shall match. So we're kind of saying that I think that I'm again agreeing that proposed option 1 is compliant, but we do have this balance between a change which is important for the program and is cost effective versus a guideline. So we have a balance here, and I am at least persuaded that it's not an adverse impact on the building as a whole, and that's really where we have to come down, I think. And it's just an adverse impact, so I don't think it is. So
Can I be the minority opinion?
yes, John,
I think that Secretary of the Interior Standard 6 is important and should be implemented with the full replacement. But thank you, and I'll let this continue.
Yeah, I think that's valid, and that's why I brought it up. I think that it does not have an adverse impact. I'm not going to say it was a design error, but so I think from a guidance point of view, I think we're letting you know that option 1 is feasible.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll work toward that, and we'll also, I think, include some stuff on option 2 just for the comparison in the final.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go back to the plan for a moment. So we've addressed part A on the east doors. Part B, I think we discussed fairly well in depth, and I think there's just one question relating to that piece, which is we will have to incorporate ADA egress hardware here in some format as part of our egress component. There is a section, and Jim, perhaps you can speak to this a little bit. Jim with Kessler Group has been digging into some of the hardware stuff, but there was something about that we discovered that there may be actually some things that can let you move away from some of that hardware stuff. But Jim, maybe you can...
What's going on is that there's a section in ADA that requires that the face of the door be relatively flush on the side that's being activated. So what you're seeing with the panic hardware, where the bar turns down as it's rendered here, is not strictly ADA compliant. It projects too far from the face of the door at a level that's too close to the floor. They do make an alternative type of hardware which then turns up and would then secure into the ceiling of somehow, usually in a glass wall that's done with a floating header that allows you to latch into the top of that. That's obviously not desirable here considering the existing construction. However, there is a section, it's 202.5 in the ADA guidelines, which talks about alterations to qualified historic buildings and facilities that again, it states that where the state historic preservation officer or advisory council on historic preservation determines that compliance with the requirements for accessible routes, entrances, etc., would threaten or destroy the historic significance of the building or facility, The exceptions for alterations to qualified historic buildings or facilities for that element shall be permitted to apply. So we're wondering where the commission stands on this. Is it desirable? Is the orientation of the bar important? If it is required to turn down, then we need to, I guess, address it with this exemption through the ADA and make sure that's acceptable with the building department. And if it has to turn up, then we need to figure out a way to latch it into the ceiling or like I said, a floating header. So these are the limitations of that.
So this, and I'll point out that this render here does not as clearly depict the issue. The benefit of turning it down is that we can simply have a small lock here at the pavement, and that the bottom of the door locks when it closes or latches. If we turn it up, you can see the difference here of this 2-inch header under the steel canopy. If we turn it up, you would need that in order to create a place for it to lock. Otherwise, we're going to have to get in and modify the existing steel canopy, which I think is probably off the table. We don't want to do that. We fully recognize the historic nature of that. So, so that turning it up would require this floating 2-inch piece. And so we just wanted to get the commission's thoughts on that, as to, do we need to seek this exception, which would allow us to run the bar down to latch at the floor, or would the commission be okay with the 2-inch header at the top and running the bar up, which would be compliant with ADA?
Commissioners, thoughts? John, thoughts?
I'm happy to weigh in, but I'm curious what John thinks.
John?
John, you're muted.
muted.
I was on mute. The least intrusive is the best route. I see these additions and I think, wow, it's unfortunate that from the time this was designed until now, we need panic hardware, but there it is. So if it's hard for me to say, because I'm looking at it thinking, wow, this is really visually different, but it's a necessity. So
do you have an opinion? Do you have an opinion
whether? Soften that.
Go ahead, Will.
I think when you consider even a person who's a little shorter than average, your eye line, your line of vision is going to be above the horizontal. And it's the horizontal that we all agree has to be there. And look at the bottom illustration of the proposed and the shadows that come from the mullions. Okay, you see, so there's horizontal shadows. If you went upward, you would start to create a new visual element that would be more noticeable than going down.
Well, I certainly think that going down is the least intrusive of the two.
There you go. I could live with going down if we have to do it, but we have to do it.
Bill, were you trying to say something there?
Basically, in my opinion, down is less intrusive because, as Will said, it's not in your sight line. The panic bars themselves, I believe, and city has the experts on that we don't have a choice if we want to make this a code compliant building, or allow the school to have a code compliant building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Bobby?
Down.
Yeah, so I agree. I think your eye goes, again, to make this as transparent as possible, your eye is less blocked if they're going down. And I believe, therefore, and I appreciate you reading the code section because I've read it myself, if it is not ADA compliant, we can get exemptions or variants effectively, but it does go right to the SHPO, the MHT, and I think that might be handled administratively if you need to do that application, and I believe they would comply. I think they should, and you had somebody there from MHT on site, so they're familiar with the project. So Dean, does that give you the guidance?
I think so. Do we need, in your past experience, do we need any statement or is a statement from the commission helpful in that process as to your preferences?
That's going to be
or-
my next question. Thanks, Steve.
Anything that will be helpful, we'll do. We have not had to invoke this, but we need to get better at it, in my opinion.
Okay.
And they need to be engaged. This is a significant building, and anything you do to the top of that with that very significant corrugated ceiling would really ruin a design.
Understood. Understood. Okay.
So
Thank you.
Let us know if you contact them and ask them. I think we can provide a comment, and I can help.
Okay.
We can help do that.
And that could just be via John or like an administrative request for a comment
Yes.
from HPD.
Yes.
Wonderful. Jim, did you have any other questions on that?
I do not. Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you very much, commissioners.
Okay. I think I mentioned on the window wall replacement, we don't have any new information until we get those samples. Jim, is that correct? We don't have any further updates from our walkthrough of this center section?
Not at this time.
Okay. And then the last issue is this new entry door onto the terrace, which now we've actually seen the terrace, so can contemplate that a little bit. We looked on the right slide here. So we went and in the last conversation, we had discussed utilizing the existing door proportions from the north end of the 1988 edition. The mullion spacing is basically 8 feet from mullion, well, 4 feet for the smaller ones and 8 feet total here. So when you take that height, which on the north elevation is a 6-foot door, and you stretch it out to be an 8-foot set of doors, our feeling was that it starts to create a rather squat, a rather squat dimension in the elevation when you maintain the exact same heights along there. So we'd like to surface the recommendation again to go to just a full height set of doors, which are different than what's around the corner. But the proportion seems more in keeping with what this elevation was. And so we wanted to raise the issue. Since these are now, they just start to feel rather squat and out of character. So to use a very technical term. And we wanted to just understand what the what the general feelings around that were.
Okay. Can you just do me a favor and just advance 2 slides to slide 40?
Yes.
Because I think that really tells the story.
Certainly. Yeah. So this was the
Yeah.
this is the original set of doors, which again are 6 foot in total, and then these would be closer to 8.
Right, and if you just zoom back a little bit, actually, and then we can chat a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Thoughts about these 2 alternatives? Will?
One,
Strong preference to
yes.
their.
Sorry, one being the taller one or the shorter?
Yeah, the taller one.
Taller.
The other one calls attention to itself, and I
Yeah.
don't think that's what we want.
It also, yeah, that's a good point. It does introduce a horizontal here, which doesn't exist.
It does, yeah. John, Tower, thoughts?
Option one is clearly the winner.
Okay,
More sympathetic.
right. Bobby?
Oh,
Okay,
for exactly the reasons mentioned.
okay. Kim?
I agree.
Okay. Yeah, I'll summarize a little bit. This is what persuaded me, this view here. On the one hand, copying the new feature underneath the canopy, which is kind of hidden on this view, compared to keeping the rhythm of also a new feature, which is more sympathetic to the plate glass original wall. I think it argues, just as you say, it would create a squat look right from this angle that would call attention to itself. And that's the last thing we want to do. It should blend. So I think,
Okay, great.
and it keeps, the frame is a little wider than the, I don't know, it looks a little thick, the frame of
Yeah,
this.
we can work to minimize that frame dimension as much as possible.
Right, that would, if you can keep it to the same width as much as you can to the mullions, the uprights in that wall, then you solve the problem.
Okay. Will do. Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate the feedback. And I think we've taken the solar panels off the table, as Tim mentioned. So
yeah,
I think that's the end of our comments for this evening.
Okay. Any final comments before I summarize? All right. So then in summary, tonight's presentation regarding the renovations to the exterior of Mellon Hall at St. John's College had two aspects. First was a plaza and landscape features on the north facade. We believe overall the project is feasible. This aspect of the project is feasible and compliant with guidelines. A few aspects we discussed, the materials were discussed, and the concept of using brick in the flat surfaces is favored as the presentation, as the applicant prefers. There was considerable discussion on materials on the treads, on the steps, and the actual materials on the seating walls. And that's still an open option, whether they will be completely brick or stone on brick. And that can refer to other areas nearby around the campus. There's a few to choose from, and either seemed okay with the commissioners from a guideline point of view, although at least one commissioner did favor, I believe, a stone top as opposed to a brick, but we can talk that through. The removal of the benches is not an issue. The major issue for further discussion is the scale of the rain garden wall, which does interrupt the view of the continuous plate glass wall, and the recommendation was made to seek design alternatives that might mitigate that, notwithstanding the fact that there is a fixed utility there that may constrain the design. The larger terrace proposed is also agreed that that's compliant and feasible. Okay, so that's the landscape feature. And then the design for the exterior includes the loading dock wall, which was discussed last time, all feasible. The favored doors, the favored options on the lobby doors on the east facade was to go ahead and change those to fixed panels. The discussion also of on the north entry doors regarding the ADA compliant panic bars favored a waiver effectively is going to be needed in order to have them point down to preserve the visual transparency of the facade, and we'll pursue that. The applicant can pursue those. And the final, we did not discuss further the composition of the plate glass wall, and that'll come with samples, and those will be provided in hopefully soon in the next presentation. And then finally, the doors on the new addition, the option, which is one large continuous door without a transom over top, was considered to be better in terms of compliance with the guidelines. Okay, how did that summary sound? Anything I leave out or need to be emphasized?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right, Dean and team. Yes.
Tim, may I ask a question about process moving forward?
Sure.
So I'd just like to get some idea about the timeline in terms of when they intend to actually move to the public hearing stage, because we are going to have to do a minor site design application and have that approved before they can come before you for public hearing.
Okay.
So having a better understanding of what their timeline is in terms of this would be helpful.
Absolutely. So we are currently working on the information needed for that minor site plan review.
Okay.
And we will, we're working with our civil engineer and with Michael Ferguson's team. And we are targeting, because I believe there's nothing that occurs in August, but I believe we're targeting the public hearing in September. So the goal is to have everything submitted by the end of July to achieve that timeframe.
Okay, so the process includes posting the property for 15 days, and we also send it out for agency review. But I think that, in a period, provided your application is complete, which I can't imagine it wouldn't be, we could complete that process in a 3 to 4 week time period. You do have to have that approval in order to have your public hearing. That's your zoning approval before the HPC.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did have two other questions. One was that you referenced that there's an easement for this gas line. And someone, I think the previous presenter had said it was a municipal gas line. I wasn't aware that there were any municipal gas lines that with easements. Is that a BGE easement, do you think?
Yeah, probably.
I don't know if you're going to be in any way disturbing or affecting that gas line, but you may need to talk to BGE about that. It seemed to run right through the building. Is that correct?
It's under the plaza.
And are you planning on digging around that? Well, it's something you need to think about in terms of, of whether or not they have any restrictions on disruption of the area in the where the easement is.
Understood.
Absolutely.
And then the other question that I thought I heard you talk about getting exemptions from meeting the ADA standards.
Yeah.
That's something I think you also are going to want to coordinate with our building department in terms,
Absolutely.
and make sure that they have fairly strong different feelings about those exemptions. And I don't really understand what the exemption process is, but it would be one that you want to get your ducks lined up on so that you don't it doesn't become an issue later on.
Absolutely. Yep. We'll be sure to be trying to coordinate that as quickly as possible here.
Okay, and if you have any questions about the site design review process, you can contact me directly.
Thank you very much.
I'll help, walk you through it.
Thank
Sounds
you,
great.
Jackie. Thank you, Jackie. And our meeting in September is September 14th, the public meeting. So it sounds like your goal is to get to that.
Yeah, correct.
So,
yes.
yeah.
So you would definitely need to have an application in for site design by the end of July at the latest, so that we have time to get it processed during August.
Absolutely. That is the goal.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And Michael Ferguson, I just want to say hello. I think we overlapped in Charlottesville in the architecture school. So yep, I was class of 76.
What was that?
I think your microphone's messed up, Michael. So
Yeah, cut that out.
there we go. You can unmute now if you want, but oh, sorry. That was just a personal note. We'll take off. We'll talk to you next time, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All righty. That is it for other business tonight. On administrative business, commissioners, I just have 4 items, actually. First, I hope you were able to read the letter from the Environmental Commission that we received in regarding living shorelines in general and the St. Mary's application in specific. If you have any thoughts, we can share them now, or I can just share my thoughts. first of all, I think it's valuable to have their input, and I think we should respond. Do you all agree, I assume, on that?
What response will you make?
That's what I want to develop with you all. I think we understand their general support of living shorelines and this project, and their offer to discuss it further with some of their input, I think, is valuable. I think we made it pretty clear that the design needed to change for it to be feasible. And we look forward to further discussions and would be happy to include them in those discussions. I found it very interesting that two of them excellently, qualified people on living shorelines and also energy conservation. Ann Stevenson wrote, if you looked, you clicked on it, she wrote a document about advice to historic preservation commissions regarding energy conservation, not living shorelines. So that's great news. So I think we definitely should reach out and continue communication.
So Tim, I have not been involved in that project, but I believe Cynthia was involved in that project. And were there not also critical area issues with the project?
I don't know that. We were only
So I'm going to suggest, if you're going to have further dialogue though with the Environmental Commission on this, that since it is in critical areas, that Cynthia be included. I don't know if she was included in that letter, but I think it's important to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
I agree. And what we're really talking about here is communication among commissions and city departments, because Jackie Gild is definitely involved in these discussions, and that's great. And we have already had a discussion with Jackie. She came and presented to the commission. So John told me today or yesterday that there was an additional brief meeting, John, a few weeks ago. And the idea of changes came up. They didn't present any new changes yet, but we would look forward to additional meetings with John and possibly Jackie Gild, that is, and possibly Cynthia. So
was Cynthia in that meeting, John?
She was not.
Okay, she really
was
needs.
not. It was really just to begin with. It was a very preliminary meeting that focused on maintaining a linearity that was similar to what is in place now with a living shoreline.
Yeah, that was the crux of our feedback.
Okay, I just don't want you all to get too far down the road and then find out that there's some unrealized critical area concerns. And I don't know that they are.
Yeah, it's up to them. They should be doing that.
It is a pretty important thing. So.
Yeah, the applicant should be responsible for
that's
that.
true.
We can help. We can help, but
I sensed that in the beginning there was a lot of from what Cynthia's summary of it in our staff meetings was that there was there was a general resistance towards making changes to the project initially.
The design we saw last July and the design we saw in December were not that much different. You're right. So we are really looking for them to change the design, and present. We're happy to talk to them, and again, we can do that within. John can meet with them, and we've also established that individual commission members also can participate on an individual basis in the pre-application period. As soon as it becomes an application, we cannot participate, but we can provide input on a pre-application. So
if I could say, Jackie, just so that you are aware, I think 3 years ago, there was a meeting with Kevin, Cynthia, and I think there were so many frowny faces from the different people within the department that they started limiting their their meetings.
Well, let's move on from there. Let's say that's history.
I was going to compliment you, Tim, on how much I enjoyed attending these meetings, because everyone is so polite and nice to one another, but I may have to rethink that.
We try. So that's one item with your permission, I will go ahead and draft something along those lines and encourage the communication between the commissions. Frankly, it'd be great if we did more of it among commissions, planning commission, any of them. Yeah, Will?
Yeah, I think that's, I completely support that. And I think it's, as you said, it's great for commissions and commissioners to talk to one another when it's allowable.
Yeah.
But I do think that any correspondence on this matter should make it clear again, as I think we did in our last work session, that it's the applicants that seem not to be willing to respond to our concerns. And they're beyond our concerns. They're what we must do to uphold the code that we're interpreting and enforcing. And I'm bothered by the fact that they seem so set on what they have, and they don't really seem to be hearing this.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that has changed in the last. We haven't talked to them since December. So
yeah, and that's the applicant. I don't mean the commission.
Right. The applicant. Yeah. Okay.
I'm a little.
Go ahead, Bobby.
I'm a little frustrated is too strong a word, but when we get these letters from, environmental, or we get notice that so-and-so is in favor of their project and everything, I get the sense that they're not aware of why we're saying the project isn't feasible. It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with whether it's popular or not. It has nothing to do with the fact that it might be a great thing for the environment. I mean, we can all agree that we want to do everything we can to help, Annapolis area shorelines, but we need them to understand that we're in our lane. And our lane is historic preservation, and this is one of the most significant venues in Annapolis. And I just get the sense they're not doing that, and they're just not seeing that and understanding that. And I feel like until they get that, it's going to be difficult to get them to move on it. And I don't know how to help them do that.
Yeah, maybe that I can reiterate that in my response. Here's the rationale for our position.
Bobby, that's excellent. That's a substantive way of saying what I was trying to say more generically.
No, that's good.
And that also represents the feedback that Cynthia had for all of us, that they seemed very locked into a specific proposal and did not seem to understand other issues that take precedence in many ways over their position.
Yeah.
If I could say in the meeting that I had with them, they were certainly considering other design options.
So you had a meeting with the applicants or the Environmental Commission?
No, with Jackie Guile, Don Jackson.
The applicant. The answer is the applicant.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's positive. I mean, so that's the first movement we've had. That's positive. So I want to emphasize the positive here. Okay. I've been batting back training dates. And so thanks, most of you have responded. So I was hoping that the July 22nd date would be a training date for us. And then we are going to have to do something in August. It'll be a very relaxing hour-and-a-half discussion of, so we'll try to find we don't meet at all, but I believe it's okay for us to meet just for training purposes. We don't have to have a special meeting or anything. I'll confirm
as long as it's relaxing, Tim.
It'll be about outreach to the community. I think that one, it's not going to be about ethics or guidelines. We did the legal and ethics last year.
Right.
So that's the boring part. This is the exciting part. I'm hoping that'll hold. John is working with the city doc folks about the next presentation for the garage, and hopefully they will come to the July 13th meeting, which has got only 2 small items on it, and we have plenty of time to talk to them. I hope they can do that, John, because otherwise we have to move this training around.
I've sent out an email asking them to please consider the date and to respond.
Okay, great. They are
doing a presentation to the Planning Commission next Thursday night. We have not received the plan sets yet that are going to be forwarded to the the planning commission, but if you wanted to watch that to see,
Yeah.
the interchange there, sometimes that's helpful.
Absolutely. We should tune in and.
It is first on the agenda also. We're having, the work
Right.
session is going to be first before any of the other hearing items.
It's July 1st, right?
Yes.
That's the planning commission. What we hope to see is that they took on board our comments from our last meeting.
So is the July 13th date you're talking about another pre-app, or is that
Yes.
actually their
No,
public?
it would be a pre-app. We still have not, they're not ready for an application.
They have to get a major site design application. They have to go to planning commission for major site design, which they will need before they can come
Yeah.
to you all for their
Yeah.
hearing, and they have not submitted that either.
Yeah.
But
And
they
I've
definitely
signaled,
have things done by September, or are we talking, because we don't meet in August, so.
yeah,
They've
the
been
earliest.
told what the timeframes are for zoning approval and everything, so I'm sure they're working on figuring out a schedule.
I think we've done everything we can to be helpful and raise the
Yeah.
schedule concerns with them.
Right, and we had a meeting with them last week where we also discussed schedule concerns in terms of moving forward.
Okay, great. Then two other minor items we've been asked to, I assume, well, again, I don't want to assume. Is it the commissioner's desire to go back to live meetings when we have the opportunity in September?
Yes.
Yes.
Unanimous? Yes, good. There's no option for partial, which don't seem to work. The virtual, the hybrid doesn't seem to work very well. It's technically possible, but I think I'm looking very much forward to being live again, and we'll do that September 13th. Right now will be the target. Finally, we mentioned a new commissioner. First of all, Will and Kim were approved for reappointment
Yay.
at Tuesday's meeting of Economic Matters. So that'll has to go to the council now for final approval. But we're good with our complete board. Leslie Xavier is still in the nomination process. For whatever reason, it is difficult. They are asked as a new commissioner to come in front of Economic Matters, and there's a coordination problem for getting them on a Skype so they can talk to the committee, and it didn't work again on Tuesday, so I don't know why. So Leslie's very qualified, and I'm looking forward to having her on the commission. I would assume she would get approved, but they are facing technical problems with the Economic Matters Committee. So I can.
But that won't happen then until July.
Correct.
And then it still has to go to council. in
So at
July.
this point, unfortunately, it's
We're having
September.
the same problem with planning, with one of the planning commission appointments. So
Yeah.
so
So,
sympathetic.
Yeah, I'm working on it. So hopefully we'll figure out what the complexity is of it. But okay. Any other business?
I have some.
Okay, John.
So I've already gotten a response from Eileen Fogarty, and she said she doesn't think that we can do the other option. I'll get back to you and let you know, but the July 13th date is problematic. So right, so.
Ask her to keep trying, because effectively I don't want to say this, but our agenda is already full for the 22nd of, but
right.
I can be, we can be flexible, but ask her to keep trying.
I'll just say, Tim, that 30 years on the planning commission, every time a big project like this came up, I think almost every time, Jackie, you might be able to correct me, this is the whole scenario. Just repeat it again and again and again. You tell them you want this done quickly. This is what you got to do. And then they don't do it. They probably have good reasons most of the time, but I wouldn't cross my fingers and think that they're going to be ready.
I'll give them a few more days, but then I'm going to have to ask the trainer to come to our 13th meeting, and we'll flip it. It's possible, and they've been pretty flexible, but I'm not sure the trainer is available. So
right.
Right. Well,
we're regulated.
Everybody has discussed the schedule with them, and I think that they don't. I'm not really sure what the issue is. It happens with a lot of the big projects.
Yeah.
They don't really focus in on the mechanics of the process, and they think everything can be just pushed aside.
Yeah.
And we actually did that for July 1st.
Yeah.
For them to go to planning commission, because they haven't been to planning commission for a work session since there was the joint work session in February with your group. And we were concerned that they were getting really far down the line with you all, and the planning commission had no input, and that could become a more complex problem.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just trying to signal to them. We're trying to be helpful. We get
Everybody signaled, and so, and John is now in charge of signaling again. John.
All right. And I've talked to
there's more.
Yeah, I've talked to Eileen directly. So yeah, John.
Right. So I have been asked to bring up the subject of umbrellas for outside dining, and creating a standard if the commissioners can let's say agree to one for uniformity within these let's say new dining areas.
Right.
I've also been asked to have you consider tents, and I have responded with I think that umbrellas would certainly be more favorably reviewed than tents.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think this warrants a bit of a work session. What we did last year, and for the winter time, we worked with Roberta and Sally actually on because more than tents umbrellas are a little different than tents, because tents actually have structural requirements that other people besides the HPC need to get involved in. Umbrellas, maybe not. At any rate, we worked on a protocol for tents that I guess what we're really saying is we need to update that for summer. And the guidelines were they were to be white, the tents were to be white and have no external advertisement on them. So I think we need to refresh the existing tent guidelines and add something about umbrellas, which technically are not even permitted under our guidelines. So we need to work with Sally to refresh the existing guidelines for tents.
So John, are you talking about having umbrellas like in the parklets, or it want for sidewalk cafe seating?
Parklets and sidewalk cafes.
And are they looking for now till the 1st of November while the special exemption takes place, or are they talking more permanently?
More permanently.
Ooh, that's
a different question.
Completely different.
Yeah, sure is.
Right, because as I understood it, they're trying to figure out a way to allow most of the outdoor dining areas to stay on a much longer term basis.
Yeah.
But one of the issues that I think would be of concern with umbrellas in the parklets is a lot of those tables are like right up against the outside barriers. So if you had an umbrella over them, it would be projecting further into the right of way. I mean,
Delivery trucks would have a problem with that.
Yeah, that's a really long conversation and a really big debate. That's not
It'd be one thing to have them with the sidewalk cafes. Even then, there are height clearance issues, and it's not like other areas of the country where the sidewalks are much more spacious and there's plenty of maneuvering room even if you have umbrellas. I mean, there are lots of other constraints. So it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it is a long conversation, and it goes to something that I've been talking about and haven't grasped the nettle yet. To take a look at this as the first thing in our guidelines, we need to clarify and possibly revise, probably revise. So there's two that I'm kind of recommending two things. One is we immediately get the temporary protocol and regulation updated. And then second, if people are requesting this to be permanent, then we have to have a working group about guideline revisions. So I'll put that on the agenda for July 13th and send some drafts around between now and then. So John, you and I should talk about it, and Sally was involved in that discussion back in the fall. So,
Excellent.
okay. Any other business?
Is anything happening with the umbrella project on Maryland
Oh.
Avenue?
That's a good question, John.
Speaking of
John?
umbrellas,
Yeah, speaking of umbrellas,
Well,
it
Yes,
was,
that's what made me think of it.
yeah, we approved it, so.
yeah,
I'm close to and in discussion with the designer, Dan Douglas, and he believed that it was not going to be an easy approval from BGE, that there were liabilities that couldn't be defined. There was engineering that couldn't be quantified and established, and that BG&E was likely to defer to a negative in light of the inability to guarantee safety.
So does that mean it's a no-go? Is that your way of saying that?
Well, I didn't want to put it like that.
Well,
That's a
okay.
no. That's a hard no. BGE, no.
That's really unfortunate considering,
All the effort.
how much they've already invested in the project.
Yeah,
And wouldn't it be nice if we could get rid of all those BG&E wires and poles? Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing?
Well, since growing up on Maryland Avenue, my father used to look out the window and say, "Why aren't those buried?"
You know how many times I give one of my Architects tours and somebody says, "Why do you have all these wires?"
Yeah.
Every time. Every time.
Well, the thing is, they're historic now. They've been up there since.
Yeah, it's been there for over 100 years. They're antique.
Okay, so I'll- I'm gonna put
Right.
pet peeves on our agenda next.
Right.
And
When
just
we
let's
did
just
the
get them out
Atkins-
there.
When we did the Atkins Landing project, redevelopment project, that was something we really wanted them to do, was have all the wires buried, and then that became a huge to-do, and the cost of it was astronomical, and we did not prevail.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's something that's going to be an ongoing discussion. Cornhill Street, I think, is the other street that we have been talking about for a decade.
Yeah, I
And
really
on
wonder-
Compromise Street, the pole that's right, the last pole that sticks there right across at the crosswalk.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
Right.
I-
John,
hopefully-
does the commission aware of the new artifacts that were found at City Gate?
I did not mention it,
No.
but
Well,
We
Roberta
did
would be
a,
very disappointed.
oh, well, I don't want to disappoint Roberta. So there was the deck project that was approved at 35 Citygate, and archaeology was required for the footing
Right.
digging. And so footings were dug, and Gene Ward was on site doing the monitoring, and some very interesting artifacts were found, ranging from a large portion of a Carvel Hall coffee cup to a Bakelite Cracker Jack toy, 19th century artifacts. It was Larkin Street, and
Sure.
it's probably easier to bury it in the backyard than to find a place for it to move on from.
Well,
So some good things. If we hadn't been so busy, we would have called the press.
I think
Yeah.
Roberta did call the press, but they haven't had time to do the story.
Yeah,
Well, don't worry, there won't be a local press for long.
I know.
That's true.
I'm hoping to go on Monday to the
Yeah.
dedication ceremony of the monument.
Yeah, just don't plan to drive because they're shutting down the street.
No, walking. All right.
Okay,
Any other business? All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
so second.